So you just said you could build an app for $3,000. Did I hear
Right.
that right? Okay.
Yes.
So what kind of app does $3,000 get you? Because I'm assuming that's an entry level. I mean, that coming from someone who's building an app and I have a lot more than $3,000 invested, I wish I met you 3 years ago, right? So because I'm still in the process of building my app. So coming from someone who is building an app, I can tell the listeners, you know, building an app is it has for me been a process. So this is quite interesting. It's very intriguing to find out how that process can be streamlined. And in that streamlined process, apparently saves the entrepreneur a lot of money. So can you dive into that a little bit and explain how that can be?
Yeah, I mean, the pricing, I mean, the pricing depends, right? What is very important, and I thought we were talking about this later, but I can bring it up now,
No,
is
no,
that
we can talk about it later, but go ahead. Yes, I apologize. Yep, go ahead.
with no code and low code tools, we are building inside of a box, right? So there might be certain things or ideas that low code and no code are not the right tool set to build your app, right? So people are like, I want to do Uber and I want live tracking, and then I want a notification for when the driver does something, right? So these massive apps, I mean, we have to think that Uber didn't start with what they have today, right? They started with an MVP. So that MVP that Uber had, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago, we can build. We cannot build what Uber is now. And I mentioned Uber, and I mean like marketplaces, this two-phase like Uber, Postmates, like this type of apps, Airbnb, right? So pricing depends, of course, but with low code and no code, usually what these tools already have is the user interface, the elements, the components. So the buttons and the layouts and the fonts, right? So there are limitations, which are usually good if you're building an MVP, right? Because most people, most business owners or founders are not that technical that they know how wide should a button be in a phone versus a computer, right? And we don't care. We don't care because the platforms that we use to build the apps provide those components and elements, right? So we actually build the logic. We make sure that the app works. The user interface is fantastic. It's clean. It works great on any device. It's actually we build web apps, progressive web apps. So they're living in the browser. So we depend on the either Chrome in Android or Safari in iOS to load your app. So there are certain limitations, which in many cases, they're good enough for your MVP. They're great for a business that doesn't care a lot in terms of if the button has a gradient or not. But if you want if you have a mock-up with a beautiful design, maybe we won't be able to build exactly the same. Right.
So what types of so of course and thanks for answering that. I didn't mean to put you on the spot with the cost because I just wanted an expectation to be set for people, right? I mean, and you answered it perfectly. Of course, how many features you need or how many layers deep the app is how I would see it in my mind, is obviously cost, right? So most people that are calling or most industries, like, do you see, is there a particular industry you guys have been helping a lot so far, or is it all over the place? And what problems are you guys solving, or what things are you automating for these businesses with the use of your app?
So yeah, I mean, we've done over 200 apps, a lot of industries. We build a lot of apps for the healthcare industry. And we help a lot of service-based companies where they usually have a lot of people and don't have enough processes or don't have automated a lot of their processes in their business. So they have to, or maybe because they already have a lot of people, it's like, okay, you do this and you do this task that could be automated. Usually small and medium businesses are already using a software or a bunch of different tools to run their business, right? And usually there are things that are living in software A that you want in software B. So I don't know, QuickBooks and your CRM. Let's say you have two different platforms. And in many cases, you will have someone in your team like copying and pasting stuff from your CRM into QuickBooks, right? Or generating an invoice in Stripe and then adding those numbers to some other tool where you keep track of your financials, stuff like that, right? So think of the if then else formula in a Google sheet, in a spreadsheet. If you do A, then whatever, otherwise another result, right? So thinking in that very simple term, if then else. So if there's an invoice above $5,000, then send an email to someone. Otherwise, just create a PDF and store it in Google Drive. So very simple. We start usually at these very simple processes, right? Usually, small and medium businesses end up exporting data into a spreadsheet, into a shared spreadsheet, and then everybody has access to that spreadsheet. So the CFO and the owner or the founder, and then everybody comes in and works in the spreadsheet, and sometimes they delete data, sometimes they see data that they're not supposed to see, because maybe you don't want certain people in your company to see numbers, but since everything is going on the spreadsheet, and everybody comes in and sees the data and deletes the data. So usually that's a very good client for us. That's a great case where we can help them a lot, because you have these database spreadsheet, and then we create an app on top of that one. We set user roles, so your front desk employees can only create a ticket. Your billing department can add numbers and can see like data and payments and all that. And maybe you, the owner, can create a PDF report with all the clients that came today and can see analytics, right? So businesses already have the data somewhere in one software / app or multiple. And then what we usually do is build an app on that part of the data that's not automated, and then connect the data back to whatever apps or softwares you're using. So I usually mention that we build like a little octopus. The brain is the app, and then the legs, we connect the data that now is cleaned up in the app to whatever software or tools you're using. So like every day we generate a PDF and send you a report of sales. And for the billing department, we automate a process where we send all the payments to their QuickBooks. And for the front desk, we, I don't know, connect to the CRM and do things, right? It's very personalized. It's not productized at all, which is like one of the main challenges of an agency, right? It's not very productized, or not at all productized. So we get a lot of different clients, a lot of different industries. And so that's like one type of app / client that we get. The other one is a founder or an entrepreneur that has an idea, right? So I want, for example, we have a client, she's a notary in Ohio, I think, and she had this idea of creating a marketplace of notaries in the US, so that you log in, you share your location with the app, you see the nearest available notary, book them, pay them, and then they come to your location and do the signatures, right? So it's an MVP. She is an expert on her field. She's a notary herself, so she knows there's a need. Like, I mean, I'm sure it has. I mean, you have had that thought. If only I could code, I would build this app. Right? And I was there a few years ago. If only I had studied software like development or computer science instead of international relations that doesn't help for anything, I would be able to build this idea and not spend a lot of money, right? Build something, get a few clients, see if it scales, and then move on to the next step. So a lot of ideas people come to us and they're like, I have this idea, I'm willing to spend $3, $4, $5, $10,000. What can we do? And we build an MVP, right? The next thing for them is scaling or getting users, and that's something that we don't do. I mean, they either hire a growth agency or they do it themselves, whatever. And the idea for them is to have a great product that they can use to validate their idea, and eventually either raise money and build a $200,000 app, or pivot and change the idea to something else. Right? So it's like the starting point. It's step one of many, and that's something that I tell them all the time. It's step one of many. Like, getting your app is not the end goal. It's the first step. Then get users. Then, if it's a subscription-based app, get money. Then come back to us and let's do version 2 of the app based on user feedback. Then get more users. Right? It's a very long journey. It's like having a child.
Yeah.
So yeah,